Council meeting of the Waratah-Wynyard Council. I'd like to declare the meeting open at 6:04 and welcome all the members of the gallery, council staff and councillors. To begin with, I'd like to advise that the meeting will be digitally recorded in accordance with the council policy GOV.017, digital recording of council meetings to record the meetings of council to assist in the preparation of minutes and to allow the live streaming of council meeting. Next item I'd like to draw your attention to the acknowledgement of. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomagena people, and to pay our respects to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. Thank you for that. There was just one other thing I meant to mention, and that is if we're using the microphone, it's been explained to us that it's a little bit weak on the live streaming, so if we could get right up close to the microphone, please. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the record of attendance. We have a full attendance tonight, no apologies. And no leave of absences previously approved. Confirmation of the minutes of our previous meeting of council. Any corrections to those minutes to be identified and agreed to at a point to taking a vote to adopt those minutes. So I'd ask for a mover and a second for confirmation of our previous minutes, please.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan moved.
Second that, Mayor.
Councillor Brummy seconded. Anything that raises your eyebrows there in relation to those minutes? No? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Councillors, any agenda item that you have an interest in tonight, and the same with staff. Any staff with an agenda item they have an interest in, please identify them now before we proceed. Councillor Fairbrother.
Mayor Walsh, 9.8 talks about its senior management report, talks about the Get Closer program council ran. I participated in that program. I don't know whether it's something that I need to declare an interest in. The information's only for noting, but I thought I'd better cover my backside as big as it is and make mention of that.
Thank you. Okay. Announcements by the Mayor. I just got one thing that I'm very proud of here to mention tonight. At a previous meeting you might have remembered where I made mention of our Community Services Department taking out the Local Government Professionals Award for the year for Communications and Engagement Strategy. And Mrs Bradley, head of that department, very proudly took delivery of this award at Campbelltown just recently, and at the professionals meeting, the state conference at Campbelltown, and she brought this home with much pride. And I'd like to congratulate Mrs Bradley and her department and the effort by everyone that went into this award. And we're very proud of you winning this award, as proud as you are of accepting it. Thank you. So there we are, folks. That was the announcements by the Mayor. The Mayor's Communications 4.2. There is a list of events that I've attended in the since the previous council meeting. Would someone like to move on those, please?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan.
Second.
Councillor Hyland. Any questions in relation to those appointments and meetings I attended? Nil. Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Reports by delegates. Nil received. Notification of council workshops. The following workshops there we've held, and the upcoming ones, and councillors' attendance record, all there on 4.4. Would someone like to move on those, please?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hyland. Any questions before I put the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Public questions and statements. We run through those that were attended to last time and the replies, and now it's an opportunity now on 5.3 for public questions without notice and statements received in writing. And before I call those people forward that wish to participate in that part of the agenda, I'd just like to read this. The Council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements. Consistent with Council's core values, councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with courtesy, fairness, dignity and respect, and we expect our residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in their dealings with Council, as I know they will. As Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain orderly conduct of Council meetings and to determine whether a question or statement is out of order due to the use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions. I know the members of the public will show their consideration and courtesy in their comments. Thank you. Firstly, Mr GM. Mrs Overall, you had a question to put to the Council. Would you please take that opportunity? Oh, your microphone, Mrs Overall, a little red button on the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned before, we nearly got to chew the microphone to get the message across.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I actually have two questions. First question is, and these are on behalf of Building Somerset's Future. First question, the Council are now into the third year of discussions with the Camp Rising Uniting Church at Somerset for a proposed community hub, and yet no MOU has been signed. Could the Council please explain what the current delay is related to, as it seems the negotiations between the Church and the Council have stalled?
Thank you. I'd ask our staff member, Mrs Bradley, who is at her department, to would you provide a response to Mrs Overall, please, Mrs Bradley?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for that question. We have been working and continue to work with the CamRise group, the church group, around securing the facility to be able to be a community hub. It's been tricky in that we are working not just with the board of the church, but also with their national office and their facility services, and so there's been some there's been expectations between ourselves, the board and facility services, if you like, of the church, to be able to identify what needs to be done and doesn't need to be done, and how can we establish the community hub there. What I will say also is that I'm really confident that we're going to be able to do that. It has taken a little while, but everyone is negotiating in good faith and is certainly committed to establishing that precinct as a community hub in Somerset.
Thank you, Mrs Bradley.
Could I just ask what the current delay is?
So currently we are looking at what the requirements would be from a planning perspective, and what the requirements are from the facility services of the church for what they believe that should be in place there.
Thanks, Mrs Bradley. Mrs Overall, you had another question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again from the Building Somerset's Future group. Could the Council please advise why changes were made to the panel installation at the Somerset Mini Mall? Again, it seems we have been blindsided. We presented with plans that clearly outlined the design of the panels and ended up with smaller, transparent panels which do nothing for the appeal of this space and added wind protection. This change to the concept plan, along with the colour change of the roof shade, hints lack of project management from the Council. Very tiresome and frustrating, and one wonders why there is even consultation when plans are changed without any communication and explanation.
Thank you.
Again,
thanks, Mrs Bradley.
Again, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you again for that question. Certainly I'll take on notice the size of the panels and the change in colour of the roof. That I'll need to get some advice on those. In terms of the panels, there is artwork that will go onto those panels. There's been a delay in that, and we're hoping that in November that those installations will be able to go in. So the panels have been left clear, but they won't be when the art installations go onto those panels.
Thank you. Catherine Jones, would you have a question? Please, go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I have come with Julie, but
Yes.
And I'm part of the Building Somerset's Future group, but I'm talking as a bit of an individual on another matter. I would like to say it's very good to see those refuges built on the road crossing at Falmouth Street, and it's very heartening to see that following through for safety's purposes and walkability across to the river from the bottom of Simpson Street. Now, with my other hat. In Simpson Street, where I live, for instance, this is just one example. I do not understand, given the knowledge nowadays that we have about energy efficiency in new building and so on, why the council refuses or does not acknowledge or encourage people to desist from having north-facing garaging, which is totally against solar passive energy in this day and age. And it seems we're a bit backward in allowing people to change plans. There's a new build on the corner of Simpson Street and Emily Crescent, is it? Yep. One that's on the old school site, and this young fellow, I haven't talked with him personally, so don't persecute him if you know, I don't know, but he apparently applied that he might flip his house plan and turn it to have a garage facing southeast, which is eminently sensible. And twice he applied and he was refused allowance to do that and orientate it more logically. So does council have any policies at all in place about consistently orienting, if they can, with new builds toward the north and solar passive energy? And I'll step down now because I'm waffling, but that's the essence of my concern, and you just see it all over the place, north-facing garaging.
Yeah, Catherine, and
Thank you.
I'll direct that question to one of our planning scheme, Rebecca, Mrs. Platt. How you go with that one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So Simpson Street is in our general residential zone under our Waratah-Wynyard interim planning scheme. Now, in this zone, there actually are provisions for the living areas of new residential builds to be facing within north. Now, that is through an acceptable solution. So our planning scheme has acceptable solutions or performance criteria. An applicant could choose to not necessarily orientate their house with a living area facing north and therefore be asking for a discretion and then trigger the need for advertising.
Sorry, but I think that maybe there's a lack of communication within the council to said different departments, because this young fellow was just told he couldn't do it. It's already in the plans that your entry should be on Simpson Street, which again adds to the congestion on Simpson Street, particularly as it's near Falmouth Street. Maybe X isn't talking to Y within the council. You know, what's the go there?
I guess
Through you, Mr.
yes,
Mayor.
Mrs. Platt.
It may be that, without seeing the drawing set obviously, it may be that the applicant or landowner may not necessarily be wanting to put a new crossover in. There may be all sorts of different little factors there.
No worries.
So, sorry again, through you, Mr. Mayor. We may need to see some drawing sets there. The applicant may have been trying to meet a no planning permit required pathway based on his design. He may have been trying to meet an application through a discretionary pathway
Yep.
without seeing a drawing set.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Barry Walsh. Barry, you have questions. Would you like to come and present those, please?
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. It's to do with the fire break at Caitlin Drive, York Street. I've read the minutes of the agenda of last meeting, what's been passed. Not much we can do about the eagle. I don't think it's there anyway, but that's my opinion. I think it's well over the other side of the river. But I'm going to ask a question. When the fire break is done, is it going to be left as just a fire break, or can we have it greened, like a green place for kids to play in that? Since I moved out there, there's been 2 other subdivisions put in. There's not been a green area for any of the kids to play anywhere, and there's probably 40 odd houses gone in since, in Mill Pond and Yalambee Court, and there's nowhere to play. And I think they could grass it all down and could be a good green area, because there's none west of the big creek. There's no play area at all. So I just wonder what the thought is on there.
Okay. Yeah,
All right.
To begin with, will we deal with that one to begin with, Mr. Engineer? Mr. Summers?
Yep, thanks through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, probably best to take on notice where some public open space could be provided, whether in the fire break or another area there. Mr. Walsh points out that there's probably a lack of that in that area. It may be in the cleared fire break area, or there may be other opportunities. It's not one that I guess council have had an opportunity to discuss and form a view and put a budget to, but certainly the fire break can go ahead, and perhaps where green space or play space is provided could be there or elsewhere, and something for the council to consider. So.
Thank you.
I would just like to say, in the first plan, I haven't seen it, but I've been told the first plan for Caitlin Drive, there was supposed to be 1 block left for a playground, and it never got left. It got sold off.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Susan Robertson, you had a statement and a question. I invite you to come forward, please.
Thank you. Mayor, councillors. I don't know, could I just pass these pictures around of the billboard?
Okay, so, yeah.
A couple of years ago, I did bring up about the notice board, and this is the notice board that's out the side of the post office. You can't get to it, number 1, because of vegetation, and number 2, the public can't see it. So to put a notice up there is really impractical, and I'd like the notice board to be moved so that it's positioned straight as you come out of, so that you can see it on the wall adjacent here. So, and if possible, even another notice board. I think notice boards are really important. Just one moment. And I'd like to see one in Goldie erected, 2 others, 36 Park Street, IGA, and one between Noah's Cafe and French Sticks Bakery, where you're already putting things up. What I've realised that a lot of people are not getting any information. I went to the Foreshore Market on Sunday, yesterday, and a lot of people, there was a East Wynyard Foreshore Master Plan, and it was the first time I'd heard about it, and also a lot of other people there. It was being handed about, and it's not the first time I've heard from residents and that they don't know what's going on. They don't have Facebook, or they don't have computers, and they don't buy the newspaper. And I know that makes it really difficult for you guys, but a lot of people here don't, and there's a lot of people who even have computers, but they don't go on Facebook because they're frightened of Facebook for different reasons. Now, public notice boards are a means of formal communication targeted at particular persons or a group of persons. I think the elderly and the low income and some disabled people are being discriminated against by council. They do not have access to and are unable to receive essential community information, so they are unable to participate in planning information and things such as the East Wynyard Foreshore Master Plan because of lack of knowledge. And what I'd like to see is this foreshore plan to be put onto the notice board once the notice board is moved, and the information put out, go to council if you want to participate in this. People don't know. Also, this particular notice board doesn't tell you how, doesn't even tell you it's a council notice board or where it is. There's no writing on it. So unless you know that to go there, it's very difficult to put things there. Now, my real concern is this leads to the erosion of civic rights, and this fundamental to councils producing information that can get to all citizens. I believe with the marriage of the internet, local news and notice boards, it can be used to inform people and update of essential council news, council meetings, planning applications, and people to participate in opinions and social and cultural information. So I really would like to see more notice boards out there. Not notices in people's shops where they're there for weeks and weeks. And I'm talking about notices when the foreshore market on. I mean, it's the biggest question, I think, around when's the next market on? When's the next market on? There's a lot of information that should be out there. I've been told that we're not having a Christmas parade. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know what's going on. And a lot of other people don't know what's going on. So please, could you find ways of telling us? Thank you.
Yeah, we have some questions from a ratepayer who isn't present tonight, and the GM will handle those. Over to you, Mr. GM.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cody Hutchison submitted some questions this afternoon and then indicated he was unable to attend the meeting, so I did pass on that I would read those questions on his behalf this evening, and we will provide a reply. So his first question on page 134 of the attachments to this council meeting agenda, the OSSR plan annual update states that the Sisters Beach Freedom Camping expression of interest has been undertaken. Can council please advise in greater detail the status of this process? What, if any, were the outcomes? If a service provider has been selected to provide regulated freedom camping in Sisters Beach, and if so, when council expects this to be operational?
Thanks, Mr. GM. You have an answer for those things at the moment?
Yeah, Mrs. Bradley will respond to that question, Mr. Mayor.
Over to you, Mrs. Bradley.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The expression of interest process closed on the 9th of October. At the time of the agenda closing, there hadn't been any applications, and so there still haven't been any applications. So a report will come to the November meeting for council to consider where to from here.
Thanks, Mrs. Bradley.
And I will just add to that, Mr. Mayor, that that information is noted within the agenda, within the senior management report, I think on page 137 from memory. Don't hold me to that. Question 2, regarding my questions without notice to council during the July council meeting, I have a number of unanswered questions for the Director of Organisational Performance, who informed me on August 17 that Council Rates Officer was gathering further information to provide a response as soon as possible. I have yet to receive a response to my emails, and it is now over 2 months since this original email. By which date can I expect that this information will be provided?
Thanks, Mr. GM.
And Mrs. Searle will respond to that one, please, Mr. Mayor.
Over to you, Mrs. Searle.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I confirm that Mr. Hutchison did have a public question that was taken on notice at the July meeting, and a response was provided to him at the August meeting, which is our normal process. However, he did submit some further questions on the 17th of August that haven't been responded to, but I have checked with our finance team today, and he should have a response within the next week or so.
Thank you very much for that. That concludes our questions and statements in the open session. We now move into Planning Authority at 6:30. We're acting as a planning authority, and we now are open for Planning Authority items of questions relating to planning matters and statements relating to planning matters which we don't have any of. We were unaware of it, Mr. Higgins, but look, I'll just cancel our planning section and go back to our the section that your questions or statements relate to, and go for it. Yep.
It's sorry to keep raising this topic. It's about the caravan development. The original development application DA 452019A was withdrawn. Would Council please inform us of the date and time that this was withdrawn, if possible? Thank you. The DA was subsequently approved, and yet no public notice was given, no public notices were received during informing us that any DA had been submitted. We didn't see any stakes in the ground with notices or anything. What was the DA reference that was submitted by the proponents? If this was a new submission, why were there no public notices? If this was a resubmission of the original DA 45-2019A, 45-2019A, then why was no one informed publicly of the decision to approve it? And where were the petitions, submissions and objections taken into consideration by the Planning Department when assessing the new submission, whatever the new number is?
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess we'll need to take most of that on notice, won't we, Mr. GM, through the Planning Department?
So.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, apologies for the mix-up, obviously, with the questions. We're unaware of those. We will take those questions on notice and provide the response. Perhaps some of the information you may find in the agenda in an officer's response to a question from Councillor Edwards from the last council meeting. So item 711 of this agenda may indeed respond to some of your questions.
Very good.
But if there's any outstanding as a result of that, we'll follow them up and provide the information in writing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now at 6:32, we will move into Planning Authority items, of which we haven't any questions or statements relating to that department, and we'll move right into the planning items, which is 6.3, riding school located at 301 Pages Road, Morlea, DA 100-2020. We have a recommendation there, councillors. Would someone like to move it?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Seconded, Councillor Fairbrother. The matter is open for debate and
Thank you,
support.
Mr. Mayor. I would like to open the debate. The planning officer has recommended approval of a riding school at 301 Pages Road with many conditions attached. The council officer has deemed that this DA fits within the requirements of a rural resource zone. The buildings approved include shipping containers for the purpose of business activities outlined in this DA. The representatives have raised some valid issues which concern them. However, each concern has been appraised against relevant performance criteria for each. I note that the representative has raised the issue of the applicants not residing in this municipality and the potential use of the buildings being used for habitation. Council Compliance Officer will monitor and undertake any investigation into any non-compliance on this site. Planning officers have explained that this development requires a decision from this council made in accordance with the Waratah-Wynyard Interim Planning Scheme. I support this recommendation. However, I do encourage future monitoring of this site for non-compliance.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother, did you wish to speak?
No, I wasn't intending on speaking. I don't really have anything further to add. My mind was provoked, though, by the previous speaker. I don't know. I would add that For my part of the planning authority, I wouldn't like to see this particular site or the developer being treated any differently to any other site in the municipality. I don't believe that just because you undertake a development that the compliance officer needs to do a drive-by every now and then just to ensure that council's permit is being undertaken. So I'd like to think that there isn't any exceptional circumstances given the history of the site afforded to this particular developer. I believe that the development assessment, as rightly borne out, has been, the application in the planner's assessment has been adequately addressed the planning schemes. The fact that we have an objection from a neighbouring property is not unusual. Many of the issues have been raised with this council previously and are consistent with views held by those people. I think it is prudent for council to assess the application as afresh, and I believe that satisfactory demonstration has been undertaken by the applicant for council to support the recommendation, which I endorse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any speakers against the motion?
Just a question.
Question, Councillor Hyland.
It's only in regard to the containers as such, and obviously there's going to be a roof constructed between them. Is there any other, at any stage, and obviously taken into consideration, they plan on probably quite a few people being there at some stages with dressage and whatever else. Is there any future requirements for permits in regard to like that construction and the amenities that may be required? I don't know, toilet facilities and whatever. If you've got a crowd on the ground, and obviously have mobile toilets, but that sort of thing. But they sort of built it up as a pretty big thing, which is a good thing in our municipality. But I don't know, and the expectations, and it seems that everything's been rolled pretty much into the one parcel and all done. And at the end of the day, if things don't sort of work out, I just wonder how come they've bought a block. They want to teach a few kids to ride horses, so you bring them along. I didn't sort of see the necessity of sort of requiring, putting all that on paper and requiring a permit to be issued. There's a fence, there's a hard stand area, if you like, and when you start erecting roofs over tops of containers and you've got like the general public's there, I just wonder, that's just the question.
Yep. With our planning, Mrs. Plapp, would you have any comment on regard to Councillor Hyland's statement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the dressage arena did require a planning permit also. So the riding school itself is determined a discretionary use class. So that's what the focus of the assessment is on. So that's the dressage arena, the shipping containers and the constructed roof between the shipping containers. Now, you're speaking in relation to servicing of the site. Servicing under our planning scheme looks at, is the site capable of providing servicing for the anticipated numbers coming to the site? What we have done is also recommended and placed a note on the recommendation. So at the building and plumbing permit stage, that will also be addressed, determining the correct numbers, making sure the on-site systems and the facilities there are sufficient, or as to whether they need further upgrade.
Thanks, Mrs. Plapp. Satisfy your queries, Councillor Hyland? Okay, any speakers against the motion before we continue? If not, you have a question, Councillor Fairbrother?
Mayor Walsh, yes, a question, as you rightly point out. I understand that myself and a number of other residents in the municipality understand that you have an interest in horse riding. As a person with experience in horse riding. What sort of value do you place on this development towards what it brings to the horse riding fraternity in this municipality?
Councillor Fairbrother, I think it's a well overdue service to be provided to the needs of the equestrian organisation. I really do. I think it'll be a huge benefit to have qualified people teaching young people and assisting older people in their later lives of the love for horses. And I think it'll be a great asset to our municipality. I really do. Any further? Councillor Dunyam, no speakers against the motion.
If I could just respond to Councillor Fairbrother. The situation around future monitoring of the site is a response by the council officers to the issue raised by the representative. As we're dealing with only one development application, then that is where it sits. I do believe that we have seen this type of recommendation in other development applications, so I think that we are beholden to make sure that any development application meets the compliance requirements. I thank Councillor Fairbrother, Councillor Hyland for his questions, and Mrs Platt for her answers. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. 6.4, in the planning scheme, in the planning department, boundary reconfiguration, 4 lots into 4 lots, no extra lots. Lots at Hawes Lane and 687 Murchison Highway, Elliott. There is a recommendation there from the planning department. Does someone wish to move on that, please?
So move, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Second that.
Councillor Edwards. Any debate? Any speakers? Do you wish to speak, Deputy Mayor Dunyam?
Just to say that this is a bit of a curly one, and the representative has raised valid concerns about the rationale behind the DA and future implications. However, this DA was referred to the Department of State Growth with advice that this DA must comply with departmental requirements. This DA rearranges the titles for the primary purpose of benefiting the current practices on the property and increasing the size of the farming parcels. I support this motion.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Excuse me. Yeah, Councillor Fairbrother.
I do support the motion, but I just raised the query of provision of the attachments. I must confess that I didn't get to read my agenda till late tonight when searching for the attachments. Couldn't find them. Councillor Edwards said, "Hey, did you get the attachments?" And I suggested to her, I said, "Oh, no, I didn't get to sit down and read my agenda till late tonight, but I did feel a little bit shortchanged and somewhat surprised when I heard that Mr Hutchison made reference to the attachments. I didn't think to go on Council's website to access them that way. And I don't know, did other councillors get access to the attachments? And I thought, oh, maybe if we all didn't get the attachments, Councillor Dunyam made reference to them, so I'm thinking, at least one of us got there. So good work if you did. But I was having difficulty, Mr. General Manager, finding the attachments when I went looking for them.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. That's the first I'm aware of any issue with the attachment, so I'll nothing's certainly been raised before this evening, so I'll investigate accordingly.
Okay, any further speakers? Any further questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried unanimously. That concludes our planning section at 6:43. We now continue into matters raised by councillors. 7.1, responses to councillor questions taken on notice from the previous meeting. Councillor Edwards, there's a response. We turn over the next page and we've got Councillor Fairbrother, Councillor Courtney. Questions, Settlement Strategy, Councillor Fairbrother. Councillors' questions received in writing, Councillor Edwards, Yard Road. 7.3, questions from councillors without notice.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Dunyam.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the GM, I understand that the panels at the southern end of the so-called mini mall in Somerset still require work, so I'm really just reiterating what Mrs Overall has said from Building Somerset's Futures. They are very frustrated in not knowing what actually is happening, so thank you for the information that was provided before, but I still wanted the question documented as being put. My second one is through you, Mr Mayor, to our engineer. I note the question received in writing from Councillor Edwards regarding Yard Road, and I ask how many residents are actually on this road. I can take any question on notice, but I did think that it is important to know just how many people do access this road.
Mr Summers, I guess a fair few of us understand how many live there, but would you like to answer this question?
Yep, through you, Mr Mayor, I don't believe there is any, or there may be one. I'll have to confirm that for you, but the volume of vehicles being 14 vehicles per day is roughly the equivalent of vehicles generated from one residence per day. So.
Yep. Yeah, I'd like to help you there, Mr Engineer. There are no living residents on Yard Road.
Thank you. I have a question about coastal erosion, and a valid question that's been raised by Councillor Courtney. My question relates to liability. I understand that Councillor Courtney has emphasised the necessity for our planning scheme to accommodate the coastal erosion report. So I ask as to whether this report will be included in our planning scheme and whether it will impact on our planning scheme, and if so, what would be the liability of council? And I do believe this needs to be taken on notice.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr GM, can you help us there?
We can do as the Deputy Mayor requests, Mr Mayor, and take it on notice and provide a reply.
Thank you very much. Okay, councillors.
I have one more, if I may, please,
yes.
Mr Mayor.
Mr Mayor, can I don't want to preclude Councillor from asking another question. Maybe just go ahead and I'll tell you later what I was going.
Maybe I say, oh dear. I'm asking a question to the General Manager. Would it be possible to conduct a feasibility study on an electronic or similar screen to facilitate communication of important information in both Somerset and Wynyard? This can be taken on notice as well. From the presentation by one of our ratepayers, the boards are inadequate and ineffective so far. So I think that we need to start looking at, are there other ways of communicating and making sure that any screens that are put up with information, they are big enough to read and they present current information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, it's certainly the points raised earlier around council having multiple mediums and forums in which they can communicate and engage with the community is indeed correct. We are currently working on a signage strategy, which I think will address the concerns that have been raised, and that particular strategy will include some evaluation around electronic signage versus the more traditional formats of notice boards. It will also look at, as the name suggests, signage and provision of information throughout the community. So that's something we hope to bring to council prior to the end of the calendar year, going well, that you can workshop and then ultimately put forward more formally. But I think that will address the concerns that have been raised.
Thanks, Mr GM. That you done there, Deputy Mayor? Any further councillor questions without notice? Councillor Fairbrother.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I've got a couple. thank you for Deputy Mayor for asking hers. I was just not trying to interrupt, but I did. She mentioned Councillor Courtney's questions taken from the last meeting about coastal erosion. I was just going to I thought perhaps on the back of that it may be opportune to make councillors aware that, if they're not already, that on this Wednesday, 21st, the Planning Minister is between 12 and 1 o'clock appearing on a webinar where, I guess, preceding Wednesday, we were able to furnish questions to LGAT that may ask them on our behalf. I guess the planning strategy or planning documentations that we've sought perhaps could be asked, a question could be asked of the Minister, hey, where is it? Equally, I don't know whether Councillor Courtney is aware that there is a document pulled up in one of our, I think, is it our Wetlands and Waterway Code on coastal, brings up coastal issues. The document's actually about 400 pages thick, and I don't know what issues, if there are issues, that Councillor Courtney is seeking information on that isn't in that document. I don't know, but if you're aware of it, it's all good. Alternatively, there's something in that document that you're after, maybe again another question to the Minister on Wednesday. I'll be asking a question for the Minister on Wednesday. When is planning reform going to be concluded? I have a concern, Mayor, that planning reforms have been going on since the year 2000. We're now in 2020. How much longer do we have to wait till we arrive at our destination? Do we know? I don't know. That's why I'm going to ask the question. I think it would be a good one to get a response from. So that's, was that a question? Did you get a question out of that?
Yeah, I did, and I got a bit to say about that too. I remember 3 general managers ago, we were given 2 days before Christmas to have our submission forwarded before Christmas, and I said to the GM of the day, don't waste your time of it. And he said, I'm not going to be the only council that misses out on having the request met from the planning TPS. And so I said, oh, well, I don't want you to strain yourself, but I don't think it'll be very fruitful. And here we are still 3 general managers later, and we're no further down the track. And there was a big committee and a lot of money spent, and there's still been a lot of money spent, and we're not getting very far, are we? Sorry, I had my bit to say. Okay, thank you. Any further questions without notice from councillors? Okay. Oh, Councillor Fairbrother.
Yeah, I do have another one, but I don't want to stand in the way of other councillors that haven't had a turn. My question is, does opportunity exist to expand the 30th anniversary of the Tulip Festival to incorporate and utilise and evolve other flower producers in the municipality? Mr Mayor, I ask the question because we have more than one commercial tulip operator, which I've spoken to the General Manager about and is aware of. This council is rich in our flower history. I reckon we're only one community in the state that has a flower dale, and it's underutilised and under-celebrated. And I think next year for our 30th anniversary, and I don't want to steal or jump on the bandwagon, but as a councillor, I think we have a tremendous opportunity to celebrate flowers in this municipality. We have tonight on the agenda, we're going to be debating whether we can recognise the work of Tom Forster and his work with daffodils. I'm thinking, how good would it be next year if we had the wonders of Wynyard and some Alex Jezelenko flowers on show? Wouldn't that be something to celebrate the Tulip Festival, come along to the Wonders of Wynyard and see Alex Jesselenko. I know, Mr Mayor, you and perhaps Councillor Highland might have some sympathy if there was a daffodil called Gary Ablett. And I was thinking about that, and then I thought, well, why don't we ask the real Gary Ablett to come to the Tulip Festival? He maybe by 2020, him and Patrick Dangerfield might be grand finalists or grand final winners. And why don't we overextend ourselves as councillors or council and think outside the square and do something different for the 30th anniversary of the Tulip Festival? And perhaps council staff already are thinking, let's do something different and have plans. I don't want to impinge on it, but I just think what a rich resource we have in this municipality that is right under our noses that we're not accessing. I say this because as a tourist operator, I've had people in the last month coming from all over Tasmania just to see the tulips on Table Cape. How much more would people, if we don't have COVID, come from around Australia if we sell it right and come and see some of the rich things that we've got in this municipality? I just think that it's something that needs unlocking. The flowers on Table Cape are fantastic. The flowers on Morlear are fantastic. It's just if we, and we're just not even scratching the surface. I think that if we scratch the surface and we done the 30th anniversary something different, I think that it would impact on our community in such a big way that people go, wow, wasn't that special? Let's have a 30th anniversary every year. So I ask the question, does the opportunity exist to expand the 30th anniversary to incorporate other flower producers in the municipality? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fairbrother. I'd just like to add to that, the Wynyard Garden Club had a hugely successful display and flower show in the Uniting Hall, just, around about the beginning of our spring-loaded celebrations that replaced the Tulip Festival, and that drew a lot of people from up the coast, as well as what's happening now with the tulips. So this just an event with an organisation that could possibly be considered. I think Mr GM.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I guess the easiest way to respond is to, comment that shortly we'll do a debrief of the spring-loaded event for this year, and then planning in earnest will start for next year's Tulip Festival. The points that Councillor Fairbrother have made have been noted, and we'll certainly consider those as part of the planning for next year's event, and the appropriate discussion will take place with councillors as we progress that preparation and planning.
Thanks, Mr GM. Yeah, I was in Circular Head today for quite a while, and there was people there from Western Junction and in Circular Head saying they'd made the journey here at the weekend, and they experienced the traffic at Table Cape Lookout and at the Lighthouse and the tour operator and the flowers at Morlear. And I said, what time of the day were you around? Because I took a buggy ride around to see the activity that's around, and it is just enormous what's happening. Even though the festival hasn't happened, people are just coming from everywhere. And there must be a lot of people in Tassie that are here trapped and can't get home, because a lot of them are tourists, and there are foreign number plates on the vehicles, and I just trying to work out how long they would have been here prior. I just wonder how long they've been here, or how are they getting here. Never mind. It's a big thing that, anyway, it's just been, it's created a lot of turnover for the CBD of Wynyard, I know, because I had morning tea down in Night and Day the other day, and it was just full of people that were strangers. Yeah, anyway, thank you. Mr GM, did you have something to say? No, fair enough. 7 councillors' questions without notice. That's a Fairbrother. Oh, sorry. Councillor Fairbrother.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following on from my previous notice of previous questions about the planning strategy workshop. Is it still intended to have a discussion at a workshop about the planning strategy?
Mr. GM.
The settlement strategy, Councillor Fairbrother?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. I guess internally we've decided to do a little more work on the draft settlement strategy, so it is still absolutely intended to bring that back to a workshop and be placed before council for public consultation. But yes, there is some work yet to do on the draft document.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Thank you. You're not on the air, Councillor Fairbrother.
Sorry, apologies to other councillors. Just one more. The Sisters Beach subdivision was once mooted for a council workshop. Is that still on the radar, or is it on a rolling to be done list?
Mr. GM.
Through Mr. Mayor, it's not on any list that I'm aware of at the minute. Certainly some residents have met with planning staff in relation to the settlement strategy and the impact of any subdivision and how that may affect the municipality of Sisters Beach. But it was flagged, I guess, as part of the discussions under the settlement strategy. Nothing else earmarked or scheduled that I'm aware of.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Okay, councillors, any further questions around the table? No worries. Okay, we'll move on to notices of motion. Item 8.1, Councillor Edwards, mountain bike trails, that the council undertake a workshop to discuss the feasibility of mountain biking trails within the Waratah-Wynyard municipal area, and officers prepare a subsequent report for consideration. That is the motion. Councillors, Councillor Edwards, would you formally like to move that motion?
Yes, I'd like to move the motion as it's written, please.
Could I second the motion, please, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, Deputy Mayor Dunyam seconded. Okay, Councillor Edwards, your turn to speak.
Okay, well, as like a lot of people talk, and it's on social media, and something come up about mountain bike trails. So, and then I get tagged. So I talked to this community person, and he is very passionate about mountain bike trails, and he has been to nearly all the mountain bike trails in Tasmania, and he talked about the economic benefits to the communities in that, but he also talked about the social benefits as well and what it can do in the community. I just feel that there's economic benefits and could be for Wynyard or the Waratah-Wynyard municipal area, but I think at this time, where we are sitting at this present time, the positive benefits for me is what we need to look at for social impacts to mental and physical well-being. So I'm just asking if we can take this to a workshop and a report to follow from the council officers.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could just make a couple of comments. I support this motion and thank Councillor Edwards for bringing it to the table. I do have a question, though, about bike trails within our municipality. And some years ago, a report was prepared and presented to this council on bike trails of varying challenging levels around Waratah. Could this be resurrected and included in the proposed discussion, please? And also, I understand that Live Well, across the road from the council chambers, are planning on developing a bike trail at Aldina. So I do know that that's part of their planning. And I also just wanted to make mention of the horse trails, Tandara it's called. The Clarence City Council have developed those. I'm just wondering if there can be a combination of bike trails and horse trails, which I'm sure our mayor would be really grateful for, so that he can beat those bikes probably on those trails. But I'm just thinking of the combination may have greater benefit, economic and social and health-wise, for a greater number of people within our municipality.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on horse and bike trails, just thinking about it as you were speaking, Councillor Dunyam, not experienced in horse trails, but I would have thought that horse riders like consistent trails, not bike riders or mountain bikers like it up and down. A horse can probably do up and down, but not up and down as frequently as what bike riders do. So whilst the two do like tracks, I don't know that they're the same type of tracks. But in saying that, I do support the motion, and I too commend Councillor Edwards for bringing it to the table. This council has had, and in particular Councillor Edwards and I, participated in what I believe was a bit of a success story with the Sisters Beach Working Group. This particular issue, I think, needs to have community support and community driving the project. And I too believe that there is sufficient interest out there in council workshopping it, yes, which I support, but equally then going out to test the community appetite for such a thing. And I think that will tell us whether or not there is an already crowded market, whether the market is saturated, or whether there is an opportunity in this municipality for such a thing. And I think it's good for us to consider this motion, take it to a workshop, and then if council laws are supporting it in principle, we then go out and form a workshop, a working group or a working party with interested parties, council's representatives, and perhaps, again, a couple of councillors, as we done with the workshop scenario, to essentially follow through with a concept, harness the community interest, and then work towards an outcome that benefits perhaps not only the residents of the municipality but the wider Northwest Coast or Tasmanian bike riding fraternity. Thank you.
Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Highland.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit further to Councillor Dunyam's recollection of our report we've got on the one at Waratah, and I think from memory there was 3 or 4 different sports identified in that, and it was actually I think it was a 40-kilometre course. And I think really if we're going to go down that track, we really need to have a point of difference. It's not much good at just coming up with a standard mountain bike track like everyone else has got. I think we could do it up there because the space is there and the track's there for it. So I think if we're going to go that way, we really need to have that point of difference. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Highland. Any further speakers? No one's spoken against the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, we move on to 8.2, which is the renaming of Foster's Road. Notice to the council rescind the decision previously made, and it is proposed there by, we need a formal motion. Councillor Bramish, did you wish to move that?
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you.
Move, Councillor Bramish.
I'll second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Just waiting for a seconder, that's all right. Deputy Mayor Dunyam seconded it. Any speakers?
Thanks, Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Bramish.
Yeah, I'm not going to be too proud to say that I got it wrong last meeting, in my view, by supporting Foster's Road. After seeing all this information, and thanks to Councillor Fairbrother, 99% of that information come from him, and I'm prepared to support this motion to rename the road Foster's Road. As was made earlier, it's got a lot of history there, with the flowers named after different, like you got Alex Jezelenko, Dennis Lilly, Rocky Cape, Slim Dusty, and you got Tom's grandchildren, the wise boys growing the daffodils in their properties. So I just urge councillors to revisit this and change it. We done a survey and there was some that wasn't happy, but there was some that didn't reply. So that meant, in my view, they probably didn't care. And I reckon I should leave a lot of this discussion to Councillor Fairbrother, because it was his work that's made all this information available. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bramish, any further speakers? Councillor Courtney.
I'm only going to speak because I'm going to stand by the original motion, and I just want you to understand why I stand by the original motion. My understanding is we've brought this back to council because of comments made on Facebook that an ex-employee said, "My bad, you know, that should have been spelt that way." I don't believe we've been presented with any further evidence that it was meant to be that road. We're relying wholly on the fact that the Forster family lived up there. But by going on that notion, any farm that has run a business in this area could put forward that name should be named after that family, because it's a pretty low bar that we're setting to say, okay, if your family lived there for a long time and they ran a business from there, we'll name the road after you. So I don't want to set that precedent, especially when we're currently saying to people that we won't allow for the naming of roads that implies an ownership. So I don't believe that's in consistent keeping with council policy. I understand that there'll be debate over it and it'll probably be rather heated. And I'd like to state that the other reason, the second reason I'm standing by the original motion, is because we decided what was right was that the residents said 6 to 2 that there was a cost imposition for them and an inconvenience for them. There's a cost imposition for council and an inconvenience for council. There's a cost imposition for every agency we have to contact to get the name changed and an inconvenience for them. So I believe that the first decision that we made was the right decision based on the evidence that we had, and I don't believe we've been presented with any further evidence apart from the fact that there was a heated and impassioned debate on Facebook that largely came from a lot of family members related to the Forster family. Now, I understand that that's passionate for them, but that name has been incorrectly named for quite a long time, and now we're pushing for it to be changed when there's clear inconvenience and cost to do so. The reason that we're suggesting tonight that the motion should be revisited is because we aim to ensure uniqueness and historical significance in street naming. If we're going to say that every business that's been run on a farm is historically significant, how long do you have to live there for it to be historically significant? Because there's a lot of historical significance from our Indigenous groups that we don't recognise, and I feel like this is a little bit of a, once again, doing the right thing is, from my point of view, populist, and a little bit to make sure that those people support our rerun for council. I'll never make a decision that is populist. I believe that there's a cost. I believe that there's an inconvenience. I believe that the residents have stated clearly why they don't want it to change. I don't believe that we've got evidence that it should have been Forsters, apart from the fact that we've got a lot of people that say, well, I remember when the Forster family used to live up there. So based on that, I'm going to stand by my original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any further speakers? No further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Previous speaker indicated that we're setting a fairly low bar. To me, the reading through the agenda, the most important thing in the agenda and the documentation tonight, to me, is the report that forms a part of the Caitlin Drive agenda. It's the Aboriginal Heritage Report for Caitlin Drive. Only just sat down and pinched off a table a copy of that report. It provides a lot of the history and the heritage of the Northwest Coast, which I'm unaware of. And I thought, that'll be a good bit of bedtime reading. Last week, coincidentally, there was last week was Seniors Week, if you wasn't aware, and there was a presentation in Burnie about the VDL company and the VDL company's land holdings, trails and the like in the Northwest Coast, much of it related to Waratah-Wynyard. Councillor Courtney sort of indicated that we're setting a low bar and we're setting a dangerous precedent. I guess I've just become aware so much of our local history, Fossey River, you can name all of the towns in and around the Northwest Coast. All of them have a connection to early European history. Yes, correct, there's not a lot of Aboriginal heritage. You might say Myalla, Yolla, Marrawa, all pertains to links with the Aboriginal history. Yes, I believe there should be more of it. But in this instance, we have recognised that the Forster family does have a connection to the land in this area. There isn't, to my knowledge thus far, a history of the Foster family. There is to the Forster family, but not the Fosters. And yes, we have recognised as well, Council has made an error in their signage. What we've also unearthed as part of this motion, and I commend Councillor Bramage, yeah, okay, Gary, you're not proud that you voted the other way, but you can be proud that you're prepared to change your mind. And that to me is something that, yep, you can wave your flag and say, yep, I'm big enough to sort of say, hey, I made a mistake. And I think as council, that's what we need to consider tonight, is are we as a council big enough to say, hey, to the Forster family, hey, sorry Forster family, we recognise your family heritage in the area, we're sorry, we got it wrong, we're prepared to do the right thing and change the name back to the Forster family. I mentioned earlier about flowers in this municipality, and I guess if we change back to Forsters, to me what it does, it has a romantic connotation to a degree, but that's not reason why I believe we should be changing it. Changing the name back to Forsters Road provides a degree of closure for the Forster family. They are somewhat disgruntled when they hear the name Fosters because they believe it should be Forsters. That's something that I agree with. But how would it be, it's almost a story that should be celebrated, the fact that council, when it was brought to their attention that they made a mistake, turned around and rectified it. And I think that we have the opportunity to go one step further and find some bulbs of Tom Forster and grow them and put them out for display at certain times of the year and then celebrate some of this town's heritage. The opportunity there exists, and I think it's something that we should pursue. And for me, the first step in that is for us as council to recognise the wrong, to make it right, and then we can make necessary steps to address, or as some of the Aboriginal people say, start the healing process. And okay, it may be only one family, but how many other families are there in this municipality that have roads named after them? I know my father-in-law, Stuart Pepperell, out in his area where he he lived. There's Pepperell's Road. And you could name names of so many people, early settlers in this municipality, that have roads named after them. Why? No, not because they're well-to-do people. It's because they were the early settlers in that area, and they have been recognised, or one of the early settlers, they have been recognised by them settling in that area. Heritage of Wynyard, we have Goldie Street, Wynyard, all of those things we have. When you scratch the surface, we have history associated with Moore Street, Quiggin Street, and you could reel off the nomenclature of so many places and so many roads and streets that we have in this town because of the history or the heritage associated with it. And I think it's prudent for us to support the motion and change the name to Forster's Road.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers? We have one Councillor Edwards.
I'm going with the motion, but my reason being is that I will go with my decision from the prior motion last month, and to still write the historical connection to their family name, and knowing to me how we lost our name. I just want to do that for them. So.
Okay. Any further speakers? Councillor Ireland, you're on.
Yeah, Mr Mayor. I'll support the current motion, and as I was an apology at the last round, I obviously didn't catch up on all the Facebook information or whatever happened there, but and I'd support the Forster name because having family ties in that area for over 30 years, I pretty well know who lives in what house and how long they've been there and the history that goes with everything down there. So that's my reasoning for going that way.
Okay. Any further speakers before I ask Councillor Bramish, does he wish to close the debate? Okay, Councillor Bramish.
No, everything's been said, Mayor. We give it a fair old flogging last month, and we've given it another go tonight. And once again, I appreciate Councillor Fairbrother's help with this and identifying all these things. Just urge councillors to support it.
Okay. There'll be a division, and I need to take a show of hands. So those in favour of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Councillor Hyland, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Fairbrother, Councillor Bradley, Councillor Bramish, Deputy Mayor Dunyam, and myself. Those against, Councillor Courtney. The motion is carried. Okay, 9.1. The audited financial statement for the year ended the 30th of June 2020. There is a recommendation that the Council receive the annual financial report and note that it will be included in the annual report for the year ended the 30th of June.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hyland seconded. Any speakers? Any debate?
Just briefly, no debate, Mr Mayor. I support this recommendation and also suggest that Council note details presented on pages 62 to 65, particularly those that have been projects that have been completed and those that are annual plan actions with budget allocations for the 2021 financial year.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Any further speakers? Any further questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.2, the Open Space Sport and Recreation Plan Annual Update.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Second that.
Councillor Edwards. Any speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.3, the Waratah Community Plan Update. That Council note the annual status update of the Waratah Community Plan 2018-2020 to 2021.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Yeah, second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hyland. Any speakers?
Just a comment, please, Mr Mayor. Again, I draw your attention to the details which list anchor projects, the Waratah Waterfall, community facilitator and community social services, which relate to the previous childcare services, and the railway bridge restoration, which has been recommended as a parallel walkway bridge, and a recommendation for adoption of the plan for this bridge is the next item on this agenda.
Yep. Okay. You wish to speak, Councillor Hyland? You're on. You're right. You're off now. Now you're on.
Councillor Dunyam has said, no, it's all going to plan, going very well, and the board has stuck by what the community gave them nearly 3 years ago now, and worked very hard all the way through, and I think we're going to reap the rewards over the next 12 months.
Thank you. Any questions, folks, before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.4, which is the railway bridge at Waratah, and there's a recommendation there, councillors. Councillor Hyland. Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Councillor Fairbrother seconded. We like to say a few words about this?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, firstly, we should thank the state government for the funding, and it's certainly come at the right time. Obviously, there's 200,000 which will go towards the historic railway bridge, and I think most councillors are up to speed with where that's at. It's past its use-by date. Obviously, it's been closed to foot traffic for a lot of years, and there was a need to do something with it because it's a bit of a thoroughfare from the people coming over from the north or the south east into town, and now that come up with a design for a footbridge which will go on the southern side. It won't be seen as you drive by, but and we'll obviously have some tourist information about the whole history of the bridge, what it did, what it was there for. It was a great asset to the town to get our tin into burning. So, and the other 100,000 obviously will let you know where that's going. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Any further questions, speakers, or about this item? Councillor Fairbrother.
Question, Mayor. Do we know where the $200,000 come from? What pool of state government funding?
Mr. GM, could you handle that one, please?
Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question. No, I don't know off the top of my head. I was going to make a comment, though. The state government have given a commitment. At this point in time, we're still waiting to see whether or not that's been confirmed as part of the budget. As you're aware, the budget's been delayed and will be handed down shortly, in some weeks to come. So we're hopeful that we expect that the money will be made available through the budget. But I just want to make that point clear. It's not locked away just yet. We need for the budget to be adopted for that to occur. But no, I'm not exactly sure the answer to your question.
Thank you, General Manager, for your response. I'm satisfied with that. Another question, if I might, Mr. Mayor. Does the money come with strings attached?
Mr. GM.
Through Mr. Mayor, no, there's been no criteria or clarifications placed on the funding. At this moment, it has only been simply an announcement of the money. We haven't seen a grand deed yet, but no, I don't believe there'd be any inhibiting factors in that receipt of that money.
Thanks, Mr. GM.
If I could just add, I'll stand to be corrected by the GM, but the 200,000 for the bridge and the 100,000 for the walkway, they pretty much stipulated they wanted that to be spent on an actual part of the project, not to go towards administration or anything like that. As I understand that, the 100,000, it was actually to be a specific
project,
if you like, platform or whatever. Yep, that's my understanding.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, the money, whilst I don't know the specific bucket that, if you like, or the specific fund that, as Councillor Fairbrother asked, it is coming through the infrastructure department of the state government. So I guess it is an infrastructure-related funding, so perhaps I didn't articulate my answer well to the last question, but it is infrastructure-related as opposed to, as you said, consultancies, reports, studies. That is the stipulation, yeah, but certainly nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Councillor Fairbrother.
Mayor, I will lend my support to the motion. I already have, I guess, by seconding it. History of Waratah is something that has been and should be celebrated, especially in this municipality. Waratah and the tin mine played a very special part of Tasmania back in the day. The discovery of tin essentially saved Tasmania from being amalgamated with Victoria. At the time tin was discovered, Tasmania was in a perilous state financially, and the discovery of tin revitalised the state's coffers. And the state, I believe, owes a great debt to Waratah and the heritage associated with the tin mine at Waratah. $200,000 to me is peanuts compared to what Waratah has contributed to this state. I think the heritage of Waratah from a council perspective is perhaps, well, clearly it's in decay. The railway bridge perhaps is symbolic of the community. I think as council, perhaps what we need to do is be symbolic and recognise by the building of a new bridge, as we done the previous motion, recognise the history and the heritage of the place and the contribution that the history of Waratah has made to the state of Tasmania. And we can do that innovatively. The building of a bridge can also be a tourist attraction in its own right. I have mentioned previously to the director, Derby has a swinging bridge, and it's equivalent to a mini scaled version of the bridge which you see at the gorge, if you want to paint a picture. But it's made out of steel wire rope and it swings. And to look at, you think, oh, look at that for a bridge. Isn't that good? And we can do the same at Waratah. Make the bridge, spend the money wisely, come up with an efficient design, and the bridge next to the railway bridge can be a tourist attraction in its own right if we do it proper. And I think it's prudent for us as a council to bring everything together and celebrate our history, as well as telling the story further about the history of Waratah and what Waratah means to Tasmania. So I support the motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Item 9.5, the Table Cape Lighthouse Tours. That Council note the granting of a new licence for Table Cape Lighthouse Tours to Craig Parsley Day Tours, Tasmania. Move with that motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam.
Second that.
Councillor Edwards. Any further, any speakers? Councillor Duniam, were you wishing to open the debate?
I'm not sure that there will be debate, but my understanding is that Day Tours Tasmania have a lot of experience and success in what they do, and are very keen to get our tours up and running and to make something of it insofar as tourism and our economy. So
thank you.
I'm pleased.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I would just like to Councillor Bramish.
Thanks, Mayor. No, all I'm going to say is it's good to see it open back up for the region.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Any further speakers? I'd just like to say I took a drive up there. I understood that they were going to open at the weekend, and I was on the radio and made that call to Aaron Stephen there on Friday at 10 to 11, and I thought, geez, I hope I was right. But I arrived up there yesterday afternoon, and it was alive with tourists. And they were wearing the steps out in the lighthouse to we'll need to replace him. I reckon that busy. He was busy. I reckon he had his cash register out. He was happy as happy. But it was great to see the doors open and people lining up. Pretty good. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, that was 9.5. We are now at 9.6. The York Street, Caitlin Drive fire break recommendation. There is a recommendation there, councillors. Would someone like to move on that, please?
Mayor, if you would give me a little bit of leniency, I'd like to ask a couple of questions first, if that's okay.
It's okay with me, Councillor Bramish.
Thank you. I guess to the General Manager or the Director of Engineering is this wedge tail eagle nest active or not? Do we know?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we have no idea whether it's active. It's been picked up in the natural values assessment as being in existence. It would certainly be something we would look at further as we seek quotes. We can go to the appropriate people to determine whether that nesting site is in fact active.
Yeah. Mr Councillor Bramish, I might be able to help there. I am aware of people in Maxwell Place, that's the cross street that runs east-west, viewing the eagle regularly with their binoculars, and there is more than one there. That's the information I received back from residents concerned.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate that. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is I've had similar information to me, but that hasn't been seen for a couple of years. So I guess I'm just trying to find, I guess my concern, if the nest's not active, we don't want to leave another fire season before we act on it. I just don't know how we can do this motion that's in front of us where that will happen. Like, if we move what's in front of us now and we find the nest's not active, that means we don't do nothing until
February.
After March, and there's a fire season gone. I guess that's where I'm trying to come from. I'll be interested. I've asked that's questions. I'll just hear.
Yeah, Mr Summers has indicated he has some more to contribute. Over to you, Daniel.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, if you might indulge me for a second for Councillor Bramage, potentially you could alter the third part of that recommendation where it reads to not undertake works during the wedge-tail eagle season, given the presence of the eagle nest within 500 metres of the work site. You could add the wording unless approval is gained otherwise due to the nest being inactive, or wording to that effect.
Yeah. With evidence that it is, yeah.
Look, I'd move the motion with that written into it. I'd be quite happy to do that if that could be done. Thank you.
So, Sally, have you? I can't see behind me at the minute. Are you happy with how we're going to do that? What is conveyed to you? Could you read it to me, Mr. GM? That's not item 3.
Through Mr Mayor, simply after the words work site,
yep.
It has been altered to read unless it is determined that nest is inactive and authority given to proceed.
Okay, gotcha.
Happy with that?
I'll second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Did we have a mover?
I moved it, Mayor.
Okay. And seconded by Deputy Mayor Dunyam. And Councillor Courtney wished to speak.
Ask a question, if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
Who would we seek authority from to proceed to decide if it's inactive? Because I have concerns about not putting the wildlife first. The last, I think it's 30 years, we've killed 50% of wildlife on this planet. So I would hate for us not to err on the side of caution with something as magnificent as a wedge-tail eagle. So I'd like to know who we're going to get that authority off, and whether they're a vested interest or whether that's somebody that actually assesses it independently.
Can we handle that one, Mr Summers?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Look, my immediate thought upon speaking earlier was to go back to the author of the Natural Values Assessment and seek some advice as to where to from there, and first of all, who would be an appropriate person to give us advice as to whether the nest site is active or not. So I would take it, as the resolution stands, that the works are not to be conducted unless two things, I guess, that it could be determined the nest site is inactive and then authority given, but I cannot at this point in time point to who might do that for council if we sort it.
Thank you. Councillor Fairbrother, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I too share Councillor Courtney's concerns. My concern stems from the addition, from the recommendation. The original recommendation as put, surely we can work within that. Outside of the time from July to February, it appears to me as though we're going to go to some additional cost. Cost to either council, or we're not quite sure where we're going to go to get this information. To me, it's like, okay, well, if there's additional work that needs to be done, there will be a cost. So can't we work through that window that we have outside of the breeding season, July to February? Can we organise ourselves such that if any work's required to be done, that we do out of that time? That way we don't have to go down the track of getting staff to seek out who the necessary authority is, and then they then need to go and, poke the nest to see if, hey, knock knock, anyone home? I know that we have a wedge-tailed eagle flies over our place at Boat Harbour, and what a magnificent specimen they are. And Councillor Bradley, I believe, has one out her way at Sisters Hills. And if they're coming from Wynyard, well and good. If they're coming from further afield at Rocky Gate, that's even better, because maybe there's a couple of nests around that they utilise. But I say, let's leave sleeping wedge-tailed eagles doing what they do best, and let us as council try to organise ourselves and do what we do best, and work outside of the known wedge-tailed eagle breeding season. So I don't support the motion on the basis that I find that the additional words within the recommendations not appropriate. I'm going for the cost-efficient recommendation, which was the original one. So if I need to, I foreshadow rejection of this notice of motion and advocate that we revert back to the original one.
I'd like to join in the conversation on this matter. How do we know that they're not going to breed in that period of time? How do we know at this stage with this that how can we tell? Because this is the breeding season and that's listed here, and how do we know that they're not going to be breeding? You know, that's the question I ask myself. How do you know? Can you ask the eagle, are they going to lay eggs? You know, and how do we know that they're not going to take that opportunity in this designated time to do what they do? It may be a season that they didn't breed last year, but they may breed this year. It might be a situation where they did breed last year and they may not breed this year, or something. Some sort of action might have happened to them. But look, I know if they're there, they'll breed. I've got 5 at home, up 7 k's south of Wynyard. I've got 5 eagles up there, a pair and 3 young, and they multiply. They return, and you know, it's going to take some bird watching to know what's going on there, and it'll take a long time. And I think by the time we get a result in that area, we could be there in after February and doing the job. We won't know the information prior to then, whether they're going to do it or whether not. Sorry. But, yeah, I really don't think that we can divert from the advice we've got.
Mr Mayor, I was just wondering, who's organised this fire break? Is it the Tas Fire Service? Or is it council? Or because there are ways of doing fire breaks that you don't have to set fire to it. You can work around the eagle's nest. You know, there's other ways of doing fire breaks, and I think we should be looking at other ways if we don't want to disturb the eagles. Look for other ways, and if the people in the area want a fire break, let's try and find an alternative route for the fire break instead of having to go by the eagles.
I know. Look, I know if this was a logging operation, you'd be banned from the area.
Yes.
I know that.
That's true, yes.
If this was a logging operation in general, you would be banned within, I think it's 1.5 kilometres.
Yes.
It might even be 5 each side. It might be a 10-metre radius, a 10k radius. But I know you are marched away from an area that has an eagle's nest in it if there's a commercial operation.
Well, Mayor, if it'd make it easy for the discussion, I'll withdraw the motion and go along with the original one. And I can debate that. I'm not saying I'm going to not support it, but obviously I'm not going to get the support for this motion, so I'll withdraw it.
Okay, Councillor Bramish has indicated he's withdrawing the motion. We will proceed with the motion in front of us. Would someone like to move on that, please?
Could I just make a comment, please, Mr Mayor? I agree with Councillor Bramish withdrawing the motion, going back to the original one.
Okay. Who will move that and who will second it?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunn, you move?
Yeah, I'll second the motion that's up there.
Okay. Seconded, Councillor Bramish. The debate is open on returning to the original motion. Any speakers? Councillor Bramish.
Perhaps the mover wants to speak first. I'm not sure, but I'll give her...
Thank you, Councillor Bramish. No, I'll allow you to speak first.
No, I don't want to. I want you to. No, I will. Yeah, look, Mayor, I guess where I was coming from, this recommendation fire break is a recommendation from the Tasmanian Fire Service that I understand, and I'll stand to be corrected. I think they might have done a report for us. I guess where I was coming from as well is probably for my own peace of mind to save a bit of face when I meet these people down the street tomorrow. And look, we, I guess with the officers' probably support until this happened, I guaranteed it'd be done by the start of fire season, which was the 1st of December. Well, I'm wrong, because we found a registered eagle there, but I've been wrong before, so I'm quite happy to admit I was wrong again. But I understand and I want to see wildlife protected. I'm not anti-wildlife. But if that's how it's got to be in March, well, so be it. I don't know whether there's any other ways around, but as the Mayor said, he's indicated if it was a logging operation, you wouldn't get any further than Somerset to the area. So look, I think we've got our hands tied a bit in what we do because of this eagle's nest, and I don't know how we find out whether it's active or not. It could be active one year and not the next. I don't know. Look,
Absolutely.
I just don't know. I guess I just got to go and tell Mr Walsh, and which I don't mind doing, that it's not going to happen to March, mate. And if there's a fire out there, I'll have to come and help you put it out. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I just like to have a little bit to say about this too. Look, I was on council when that subdivision was approved in York Street back in the in the 90s, and it was a highly sensitive field naturalist area. And there's several species in that corridor between where the subdivision boundaries were allowed to go as far as and the river reserve. And I know that's why this area was put aside. Otherwise, it'd have houses on it. And that was due to a field naturalist report and an environmental report. And look, that history is on the books here at this council. And we're very lucky to be able to address this matter in the manner we are. We'd nearly be told to walk away from it. There's orchids, there's all sorts of things out there and we all know that there was a clause put in the subdivision where nobody was to own a pussycat out there. but I'm afraid there's a lot of pussycats out there destroying the wildlife. Anyway, that's a little bit of history which may help us.
Can I ask a question, Mayor, if I may?
Sure can.
Thank you. I guess Director of Engineering is, have I got it wrong, Daniel, in thinking that the Tas Fire Service give us a recommendation of what to do?
Mr. Summers.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, Tas Fire have given a recommendation for a shaded fuel break, and they've done so having had full access to the natural values assessment and the Aboriginal cultural assessment. So their recommendation has taken into consideration the presence of both the eagle's nest, the rare orchid, and any findings of which there were minimal in the Aboriginal heritage culture assessment. So the shaded fuel break focuses vegetation removal around the nearest point to the houses and looks at shaded finning further into the bush from there to a distance of 32 metres to account for that.
Yeah, and excuse my ignorance, a shaded fuel break would be the odd tree left here and there. Was that how you would see it?
Yeah, correct. Look, in the attached report in the agenda, they go into detail as to how we will specify that for those that quote for the works. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Mayor Walsh, I'm not sure whether I've actually spoken to the motion, have I, given that it's a new motion? No, I don't think I have.
Haven't got you noted, and I keep my notes.
Thank you. Perhaps, Mayor, it re-emphasises the fact that perhaps councillors, we need to be provided with the documentation in a timely manner. I say that because, as I alluded to earlier, I haven't read the attachments. I flicked open the attachments to the flora and fauna where it talks about the natural values of the York Street Reserve, which is page 28, if anyone's got it, where it talks about wedge-tail eagles and the nest. I'll read it to you. It says, however, there is a 2019 record of a nest being built by young adults on the north bank of the Inglis, approximately 400 metres north of the reserve. So that's 400 metres away from the area that we're talking about. So it's not in the reserve, it's 400 metres north of the reserve. But a recent search for the nest was unable to locate the nest. Regardless, the species is expected to traverse the area and the reserve is a likely source of prey species. So I'm not quite sure whether what we're talking about is a nest in the reserve. My reckoning of the discussion is that we think that there is. The report says otherwise. So I just thought I'd bring that to the attention. To my way of thinking, the recommendation sufficiently addresses issues raised within the report as they pertain to the wedge-tailed eagle, so I support the motion.
Councillor Fairbrother, they're a territorial animal, and juveniles making a nest in close proximity to their adult parents is quite often the case.
Thank you.
Any further speakers? No further speakers. We have a motion. Deputy Mayor Dunyam moved. Councillor Bramley seconded. We have no one spoken against. Do you wish to close the debate, Councillor Dunyam? Deputy Mayor?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nobody's spoken against it.
No. Okay. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Sorry about in the morning with your coffee, Mr. Councillor Bramley.
I might come up to your place, Mayor.
That'll be good. 9.7, the fixing of council meeting dates 2020. There is a list of the proposed dates for our going into 2021.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think we need to put a line through the fixing of council meeting dates for 2020 up the top there, the 2021. Okay. So moved by who? Deputy Mayor Dunyam. And was Councillor Fairbrother? Yeah, okay. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. We move on to 9.8, the quarterly statistics report to the 30th of September. It's all there for your information.
So moved.
Councillor Hyland moved. Councillor Edwards seconded. Any questions? No questions? Yeah, over to you, Mr. GM, for comment.
I was just going to make a comment that we have added to this report for the first time just an update on the resource sharing with Circular Heads. The Circular Head have also had a replica of that particular item in their agenda for their council meeting last week. We will continue to evolve that particular report. We'll include some more quantitative data moving forward, but I just want to say it's a starting point for us to start to publicly record some of that information.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. GM. What do we go to now then? Sorry, we've got to move in a second. Just got a bit lost. Move in a second. Do we have any questions regarding this item? Councillor Fairbrother.
No questions, Mayor. I did indicate at the earlier part of the meeting on page 91 where it talks about community and engagement tourism. I participated in the Get Closer campaign, which was initiated by this council, which to me was a good thing that this council has done, and that is to coordinate the tourism operators, I suppose, within the municipality that can't seem to organise themselves outside of the Burnie Chamber of Commerce to promote some of the things that occur in this municipality. It was interesting to me how people responded to the different pictures provided in some of the newsprint media. There was a fourth picture of Rocky Cape, which was promoting issues in Wynyard and Waratah-Wynyard. That was nowhere near as effective as the tulips or a picture of Boat Harbour Beach, which I sort of thought, oh, really? And I guess it was competing against other areas, but the amount of interest that those ads drew to me was somewhat surprising, and I guess that perhaps has influenced my comments earlier about the Tulip Festival and the opportunity that we have for the 30th anniversary. I think what it does is sows the seed in the minds of people elsewhere about what we have to offer here in the municipality. And I had thought, well, maybe as a council or perhaps if an organisation could be set up to represent people within the tourism industry, and they wanted to get some people here, say in October, well, it'd be good to run an advertising campaign, say July, August, and just sow the seed, something simple as pictures like those ones on page 91 of the agenda. And what it does is sow the seed, and when people think, oh, I'll go for a holiday, or I'll go and see the tulips, that seed becomes, when people get the drive, the initiative to go somewhere, the seed's already been sown, and somehow or other that gets nurtured, and people then somehow or other act on it. So I guess there is practical demonstration that some of this stuff works, and I think it forms a template for me that we have potentially discovered something that we can add to down the track. Thank you.
Okay. Any further speakers to this 9.8 quarterly statistics report? No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. (9.9) The annual plan progress report as at the 30th of September.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan moved. Councillor Hyland second. Any discussion? Any speakers? Any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.10, award of tender for the supply of delivery for a grader. Councillor Bramish wish to move?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move.
Councillor Fairbrother seconded. Any speakers?
No debate from me. A couple of questions, if I may. And I probably don't expect to get the answers tonight, but just for my own peace of mind, it probably doesn't mean anything to anyone else in the room. Is it going to have a blade on the front of it like we got now? And the roller setup we got in our grader now go on the back of the new grader?
I asked the same question, Councillor Bramish.
Oh.
I did, and I don't know what the answer was. I do know what the answer was. The person I asked didn't know any more than I, so we need to go through the engineer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the intention is to use the same implements on the new machine for sure. So, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Summers.
Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor Highland.
Yeah, just a question to go on from that is what's the width of the blade?
Mr. Summers, 2.4.
I can take it on notice for you. Hopefully that's not critical to your decision tonight.
Beauty.
We can always add a bit onto it, but I did hear the rumour it was only going to be 8 foot or something, which is, you might as well put it on a wheelbarrow. Anyway.
Okay. Any further questions? Any speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.11, award of a tender for the supply of a backhoe. Want to be in this one, Councillor Bramish?
Yeah, I'll go again. Thank you.
Move, Councillor Bramish. Second, Councillor Highland. Okay.
Just a question again, Mayor. I should know the answer. I need smacking for not. I guess we're trading the backhoe from Waratah some years ago in. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no. This is the other backhoe, the JCB. The Waratah backhoe, look, that'll be subject to the coming budget process. I'm certain as to whether to dispose of that implement, given its age and unreliability at this point in time. So.
Thanks, Mr. Summers.
Yep, thanks for that. Now, some period of time ago, the current backhoe we got, which you're trading in, they requested a swinging bucket on it, sideways. Is a new one going to be set up with that, do we know, or not?
For you, Mr. Mayor, don't believe so, no. I remember that point in time that was a rather expensive implement, and I don't think the budget here would have accommodated that.
No, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions before I put the motion? All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.12, the financial report for the period ended the 30th of September 2020.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam.
Second that.
That was Councillor Edwards. Any questions?
I have a question or a couple of questions, if I can, please.
Okay.
With the complete projects, we've got the flagpoles. They're 1.25% done. Are they going to be completed in this year's budget? Do we know?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. GM.
That's the second time you've called me that.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I got a bit mixed up just a while ago. I was thinking about my Eagles.
The flagpoles for this at the front of this particular building are within this financial year's budget. So that initial percentage I haven't got in front of me just refers to some initial planning that's been undertaken. But yeah, to answer your question, the intention is to do that this financial year.
Cool. And we've got 1.25% complete for the coastal pathway. Are we any closer to getting that up to 50% or anything crazy like that?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, we're not. There is a working group of which Mr. Summers, myself, and Mr. Corey Gould sit on with the state government and Burnie City Council that are progressing the coastal pathway project. and it is progressing slowly. There's obviously the rail corridor ownership is working its way through Parliament at the moment, so I guess that's the next stage that's underway. There's some debate, I guess, some question around the ownership of the revetment structures or the erosion protection measures that are going to be put in place as to who owns them. Will it be Council of the State? So we're working through some asset management principles, I guess, at the moment. And then obviously from there, some of the project management. So it's progressing, but slowly, and I don't anticipate we'll be up to 50% anytime soon.
And I just want to thank Dana with the East Wynyard Playground. It's so popular and it's great driving past all the time. And hopefully, looking at the notes, that it is complete by the end of Christmas, which will be great.
Thanks, Councillor Edwards. Deputy Mayor Daniel.
Yeah, just a comment, please, Mr Mayor. I thank Mrs Searle for the very comprehensive information she's provided. It is easy to see that some of the results are affected by COVID-19, and so I think that, but it's well explained.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.13, the Senior Management Report. That Council note the Senior Management Report. Would
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor. Councillor Fairbrother. Any questions? Any speakers?
Through you, Mr Mayor, just a quick question.
Councillor Courtney.
I'm on 2 community groups in there, working groups. Dana and Daniel have been absolutely fantastic with communication on meetings for ISEP. I note that there was a meeting for the Boat Harbour group on the 8th of October, and that's actually the first I knew about it when I read this on the weekend. Is there any chance the communication about meetings with that Boat Harbour group could be a little bit more effective in letting me know when these meetings are? That'd be appreciated.
Mr GM.
Yep, that's noted. Thank you.
Got you right that time. Okie dokie. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother, you wish to ask a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Page 135, we have planning permits approved under delegation. I've been contemplating recently, can we add another section to that? Planning permits received and received, awaiting further information or under advertising. Just I don't know whether I need to, whether that can be added as a question or notice of motion. The reason that I'm asking the question is that I have made comment previously about the process of asking for further information from our applicants. If we had a bit of a list similar to this, we might, as councillors, understand the development needs of our community. Because I know that as a councillor, I get a bit of representation from people that say, "Hey, councillors asked for this further information." Advertise, and one comes to mind, and I'm thinking the resident that come to me, I sort of said, "Well, you know, have your 21 days passed yet?" And they said, "Oh, well, it was a long time ago that I took my application in, haven't heard anything yet." And I said, "Well, sometimes they can take your application but not process it because they haven't got all the information." And I guess what a list would do is to provide further clarifications of when I get inquiries from people in the general public, I could look up last month's agenda and say, "Hey, yep, council's received the application, it's on our agenda," as recognising that it's been listed, and it would communicate that it's in the system, it's being processed, and give us a bit of an idea as to where it's at, and therefore we can go back to Joe Public and say, "Yep, it was on the agenda last month, they've received your application, it's being processed, and I'm sure somebody will be in touch down the track." Thank you.
Mr. GM, if you wish to comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not specifically, I guess I've noted the comment and we'll have a look at how we can improve that reporting.
Okay. Thank you. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. That's all the nines. We go into the closure of the meeting to the public. First of all, the recommendation here that the council resolves by absolute majority that the matters listed below be considered in closed meeting. Would someone like to move on that, please?
Move.
That was Councillor Highland. Deputy Mayor Danium. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. At 8:09, we that the council resolve by absolute majority to go into the closed meeting to
So
consider the
moved,
following.
Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Danium.